Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Defense Station Olympus and watched the world end. The alien ships filled the sky like dark clouds, each one bigger than a city block. They had come 3 weeks ago, and in that short time they had destroyed everything humanity had built. The Crithians did not talk. They did not negotiate. They just attacked. Jake looked at the screens showing Earth below. Cities were burning. The orbital stations around the planet were gone, blown to pieces. The moon bases had stopped responding hours ago. Humanity had spread across the solar system for 200 years, building colonies on Mars, mining asteroids, creating a new future among the stars. Now all of it was dying. "Commander, the shields are failing," Amy Brooks said from her station. Her voice shook, but she kept working. "We can take maybe one more hit," Jake nodded. He was tired. They were all tired. For 3 weeks they had fought and watched their friends die. The Crithians were too strong, too advanced. Their weapons cut through human shields like paper. Their ships moved faster than anything humanity had ever built. "How many escape pods do we have left?" Jake asked. Paul Carter checked his console. 15, sir. Enough for the crew." Below them, another defense station exploded. Jake watched it break apart, pieces spinning away into space. Good people had been on that station. People with families, with dreams, with lives they would never get to live. The Crithians had broadcast their message across every frequency. They wanted humanity to know what was happening. They wanted survivors to understand that resistance was pointless. Earth's population had been 11 billion people. Now most of them were dead or hiding in ruins. "All crew, this is Commander Morrison," Jake spoke into the communication system. "Abandon station. Get to the escape pods." "We are leaving in 5 minutes," Amy stood up from her station. "What about you, Commander?" Jake looked at her. She was young, maybe 25. She had her whole life ahead of her, if they could somehow survive this. "I will be right behind you. Now go, that is an order." The crew filed out of the bridge. Jake watched them leave, then turned back to his screens. The tactical display showed hundreds of red dots around Earth. Each one was a Crithian warship. But out past Neptune he could see something different. Small clusters of green dots. Human ships. Survivors gathering in the outer system. Not many. Maybe a few hundred vessels. But they were there and they were alive. Jake started the station's self-destruct sequence. 30 minutes until detonation. If the Crithians wanted this station, they could have it as a bomb. He grabbed his helmet and ran for the last escape pod. The pod launched into space just as another Crithian blast hit the station. Jake felt the shockwave push his small craft away. Through the window he watched Olympus drift, damaged and doomed. In 30 minutes it would explode and take a few Crithian ships with it. A small victory, but a victory nonetheless. As Jake guided his pod toward the outer system, he thought about what came next. The Crithians thought they had won. They thought humanity was broken, scattered, finished. They had destroyed the cities, killed billions, and claimed Earth as their prize. But Jake knew something the Crithians did not understand about humans. Humans were stubborn. Humans did not give up. And humans remembered. Out past Jupiter, other escape pods and ships were gathering. Cargo haulers that had been far from Earth during the attack. Mining vessels from the asteroid belt. A few military ships that had managed to escape. And thousands of people who had survived, who had run, who had lived to fight another day. Jake set his course for the rendezvous point. His fuel was low, his supplies limited, but he would make it. He had to make it. On his communication panel he heard scattered transmissions. Other survivors calling out, looking for friendly vessels, asking for help. Each voice was a reminder that humanity still existed. Battered, bleeding, but not dead. "This is Commander Jake Morrison from Defense Station Olympus," he broadcast on an open channel. "I am heading to the Jupiter rendezvous point. If anyone can hear this, humanity is not finished. We will regroup. We will rebuild. And we will make them pay for what they have done." The response came slowly. First one voice, then another, then dozens. Other survivors acknowledging his message. Other people who refused to accept defeat. Jake looked back at Earth one last time. The planet looked so small now, so far away. The blue and green world that had given birth to humanity was now in enemy hands. But it was still there. Still spinning. Still waiting. The Crithians had made a mistake. They had hurt humanity, but they had not destroyed them completely. They had left survivors, and those survivors would remember this day. They would remember the burning cities, the dead friends, the lost families. And that memory would become fuel for something the Crithians could not imagine. Revenge. Jake's pod moved through the darkness of space, heading toward the outer planets where other humans waited. Behind him, the defense station Olympus exploded right on schedule. The blast was visible even at this distance, a brief flash of light against the black. One station destroyed, billions dead. Earth conquered. By any measure, humanity had lost this battle. The Crithians would celebrate their victory, claim their prize, and think themselves masters of a new world. But Jake Morrison knew better. He had seen the green dots gathering on his tactical display. He had heard the voices on the communication channels. He had felt the determination in his own heart. This was not the end. This was just the beginning. The Crithians had defeated humanity's armies, destroyed their defenses, and conquered their homeworld. But they had not defeated the human spirit. They had not crushed the human will to survive. And they had not understood the most important thing about humanity. Humans were at their most dangerous when they had nothing left to lose. As Jake's escape pod disappeared into the vast darkness between planets, heading toward an uncertain future with the other survivors, one thought kept repeating in his mind. The Crithians thought humanity was defeated. They thought the war was over. They thought they had won. They were wrong. And they would learn just how wrong they were when humanity struck back like thunder. Lisa Hayes pushed the cargo ship Resolute through the asteroid field, her hands steady on the controls despite the fear in her chest. Behind her ship, dozens of other vessels followed in a loose formation. Civilian transports, mining haulers, passenger liners, and a handful of military escorts. All of them were running, carrying the last survivors of humanity toward an unknown future. The ship was crowded. Lisa had designed Resolute to carry 500 people comfortably. Right now, there were 3,000 souls packed into every available space. The air recyclers were working overtime. Food was rationed. Water was carefully measured. But everyone was alive, and that was what mattered. "Captain, we are picking up another distress signal," Danny Walsh said from the co-pilot seat. "Looks like a colony transport near Ceres. Maybe 200 people on board." Lisa closed her eyes for a moment. 200 more people meant even less food per person. It meant more strain on the life support systems. It meant more children crying in the night, more injured needing medical care, more mouths to feed with supplies that were already running low. "Change course," Lisa said, opening her eyes. "We are going to get them. Captain, we cannot take more people. The systems will not handle it. Then we will make them handle it. I am not leaving anyone behind." This had been Lisa's life for 3 weeks now. Every day she found more survivors. Every day she pushed her ship a little harder, stretched her supplies a little thinner, and somehow made it work. Because the alternative was unthinkable. The rendezvous point near Jupiter had grown into something that looked like a floating city. Ships of all sizes had gathered there, linked together with docking tubes and cables. Some were badly damaged, held together with emergency patches and prayers. Others were intact but filled beyond capacity with refugees. Admiral Kevin Price stood in the command center of the battle carrier Defiance, one of only 7 military capital ships that had escaped Earth's destruction. He looked older than his 50 years, his face lined with exhaustion and grief, but his voice was still strong when he spoke. "Status report," Price said to the officers around him. Colonel Greg Phillips stepped forward with a data pad. "We have 47,000 survivors across the fleet, sir. That number grows every day as more ships arrive. We have enough food for maybe 6 months if we ration carefully. Water recycling is stable. The main problem is fuel and ammunition." Price nodded slowly. 47,000 people. Out of 11 billion. The numbers were hard to think about. Every person in this fleet had lost someone. Parents, children, friends, entire families gone in the Crithian attack. "What about military assets?" Price asked. 7 capital ships, 23 escorts, and about 40 converted civilian vessels with weapons. "We have been analyzing wreckage from Crithian ships we destroyed during the retreat." Phillips pulled up a holographic display showing alien technology. "Their shields are powerful, but they have a weakness. The shield frequency changes every few seconds, and during the transition, there is a brief moment where they are vulnerable." "How brief?" Price asked. "Half a second, maybe less. But if we time our attacks perfectly, we can punch through." A woman in a lab coat stepped forward. Dr. Helen Cruz was the fleet's chief scientist, a woman who had been studying asteroid composition before the war. Now she was analyzing alien technology and trying to find ways to fight back. "Admiral, I have been working on something else," Cruz said. "The Crithians use a centralized network to coordinate their fleet. If we can hack into it, we could disrupt their communications, create confusion in their ranks." Price looked at the holographic display showing the inner solar system. Earth was there, a small blue dot surrounded by red symbols representing Crithian ships. Mars was occupied. The moon was under enemy control. Everything humanity had built was in enemy hands. "How long would you need to prepare an attack?" Price asked. Phillips and Cruz exchanged glances. 2 weeks, maybe 3, Cruz said. "You have 10 days, Price said firmly, "because in 10 days we are going back. We are going to hit them hard and show those aliens that humanity is not finished." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what the Admiral was suggesting. They would be attacking an enemy that had crushed them once already. An enemy with better weapons, stronger shields, and thousands of ships. The odds of success were slim, but the odds of survival without fighting back were 0. Lisa Hayes stood at the observation window of her docked ship, looking out at the makeshift fleet. She watched work crews moving between vessels, sharing supplies, making repairs with whatever materials they could find. She saw children playing in the recreation areas, their laughter a strange sound in this place of grief and determination. Jake Morrison found her there. His escape pod had reached the fleet 2 days ago, and he had immediately volunteered to help with defense preparations. "Captain Hayes," Jake said in greeting, "the Admiral wants to see you. He is putting together strike teams for the operation." Lisa nodded but did not turn away from the window. "Do you think we can win, Commander Morrison?" Jake stood beside her and looked out at the fleet. "Honestly, I do not know. The Crithians are stronger than us in every way, but I know this: we cannot survive out here forever. Eventually our supplies will run out. Our ships will break down, and the Crithians will hunt down every last one of us. So we have no choice," Lisa said. "We have one choice. We can die running and hiding, or we can die fighting, and if we are lucky, if we are smart, maybe we do not die at all. Maybe we hurt them badly enough that they think twice about staying in our solar system." Lisa finally turned to look at him. "You really believe that?" Jake met her eyes. "I believe that humanity did not come this far, did not build all of this, did not reach for the stars just to give up now. The Crithians made a mistake when they attacked us. They should have killed every last human, because the ones they left alive are going to make them regret it." Across the fleet, preparations began. Engineers worked on weapon systems, trying to mount guns on civilian ships that were never meant for combat. Pilots trained in simulators, practicing attack runs against simulated Crithian vessels. Scientists analyzed every piece of alien technology they could find, searching for weaknesses to exploit. In the medical bay, Dr. Susan Wright treated the wounded with limited supplies. She had been a pediatrician before the war. Now she set broken bones, treated burns, and tried to save lives with equipment scavenged from a dozen different ships. In the communication center, specialist Chris Rodriguez monitored Crithian transmissions, trying to learn their language, understand their tactics. Every piece of information could mean the difference between victory and death. And in the converted cargo bay that now served as a training center, Lieutenant Kyle Stevens drilled new recruits. Most had never fired a weapon before the invasion. Now they trained every day, learning to fight in zero gravity, learning to kill or be killed. "You are not fast enough," Kyle shouted at a recruit who fumbled with his rifle. "In combat, slow means dead." Again. He was hard on them because he had to be. Because these civilians, these teachers and engineers and shop owners would soon be soldiers, and soldiers needed to be hard to survive. Admiral Price watched all of this from his command center and felt a strange mixture of pride and sorrow. Pride because humanity refused to quit, sorrow because so many had already died and more would die in the days to come. But he also felt something else. Hope. Small and fragile, but there. Because 47,000 people had survived the worst attack in human history, and they were not broken. They were angry, and anger, properly directed, could be a powerful weapon. The Crithians thought they had won. They thought humanity was defeated. They were wrong. The asteroid base had been a mining operation before the war. Now it was a factory where desperate people worked day and night to turn peaceful ships into weapons of war. Marcus Bell climbed across the hull of what used to be a luxury passenger liner. The ship had once carried tourists to Mars to see the red planet's ancient canyons. Now it was covered in missile pods and improvised armor plating. It was not pretty, but it would fly. And more importantly, it would fight. "Marcus, we have a problem with the power system in Bay 7. His assistant Nina Foster called from below. She was young, barely out of university when the war started. She had been studying biology, dreaming of discovering alien life among the stars. Now she was helping build weapons to kill the only aliens humanity had ever met. "What kind of problem?" Marcus asked, climbing down the ladder. "The reactor keeps triggering the safety systems. I tried to override them, but every time I do, the whole thing shuts down." Marcus wiped sweat from his face and examined the reactor display. "That is because you are supposed to trigger the safety systems. These civilian reactors were never designed to handle combat power loads. We are pushing them way beyond their limits, and so what do?" Nina asked. "We push them anyway and hope they hold together long enough to matter." Nina laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That seems to be our strategy for everything these days." She was right. Nothing they were doing was safe or smart by normal standards. But these were not normal times. Normal had died 3 weeks ago when the Crithians arrived. In another part of the asteroid base, Lieutenant Kyle Stevens ran his training exercises. The recruits looked tired. They had been training for 18 hours straight, and Kyle could see them struggling to stay focused. "Again," Kyle barked, as a recruit named Peter fumbled with his weapon in zero gravity. "Do you think the Crithians will wait while you figure out how to aim?" "Again." Peter grabbed his floating rifle and tried the exercise again. This time he did it correctly. Kyle nodded. "Better. Remember, in space combat, every movement creates an equal reaction. You fire your weapon, you move backward. You need to compensate for that or you will spin out of control." These people were not soldiers. Peter had been an accountant. The woman next to him, Sarah, had taught elementary school. Behind them, a man named George had owned a restaurant on Mars. Now they were learning to kill because the alternative was being killed. Kyle was hard on them because he had watched too many people die. Every mistake in training was a life saved in combat. He would rather have them hate him now than die later. Admiral Price walked through the asteroid base, observing everything. He saw the organized chaos of people working beyond exhaustion. He saw engineers solving impossible problems with duct tape and determination. He saw civilians becoming soldiers and ships becoming weapons. In the medical center, Dr. Susan Wright worked with supplies that would barely stock a small clinic. She treated injuries, rationed medicine, and performed surgeries with equipment meant for routine checkups. But she saved lives, and that was what mattered. In the communications room, Chris Rodriguez had made progress decrypting Crithian transmissions. He could not understand their language yet, but he could recognize patterns. He knew when they were coordinating fleet movements, when they were reporting to their commanders, when they were vulnerable. And in the strategy room, the plan came together. "We are calling it Operation Thunderstrike," Colonel Phillips explained to the assembled officers. A holographic star map floated above the table showing the inner solar system. "The Crithians have established a command station in Earth orbit. It coordinates their entire occupation fleet. We hit it hard, create maximum chaos, and while they are distracted, strike teams will attack their supply depots on Mars and the Moon. They will kill us all," someone said quietly. "Maybe," Admiral Price replied. "But if we do nothing, we die anyway. At least this way we take some of them with us. And maybe, just maybe, we show them that occupying our system is going to cost them more than they expected." Lisa Hayes studied the holographic display. "What about the people still on Earth?" "There are survivors down there hiding in the ruins." Price's expression hardened. "We cannot save them, not yet. But if we hurt the Crithians badly enough, if we make them pull back, we buy time. Time to get stronger, time to plan, time to eventually go back and liberate our homeworld." Dr. Cruz activated her own display. "I have finished the virus that will disrupt their command network. Once we are in range, I can upload it to their systems. It will not shut them down completely, but it should cause confusion for about 8 minutes. 8 minutes, Price repeated. Then we make every second count. Every ship will have specific targets. Every weapon will be aimed to cause maximum damage. We go in fast, hit them hard, and get out before they can organize a response." The meeting continued for hours as they refined the plan. Every detail mattered. Every ship needed to know exactly where to go, what to shoot, when to retreat. There was no room for error. Later that night, Kyle found Marcus working alone in one of the fabrication bays. The engineer was welding armor plates to a small fighter craft, sparks flying in the low gravity. "You should rest," Kyle said. "The operation is in 3 days. You need sleep." Marcus did not stop working. "I will sleep when this is finished. Every ship I reinforce is someone who might survive the battle." Kyle floated closer and grabbed a welding tool. "Then I will help. Show me what to do." They worked in silence for a while, two men who had been strangers before the war, now united by survival and purpose. "Do you think we can actually win?" Marcus finally asked. Kyle considered the question. "Win? No. The Crithians have too many ships, too much firepower. But can we hurt them? Can we make them bleed? Can we show them that humanity is not easy prey?" "Yes, I think we can do that. Is that enough?" Marcus asked. "It has to be," Kyle replied, "because it is all we have." Across the asteroid base, similar conversations were happening. People who knew the odds were against them, but who refused to give up. Engineers working on weapons that might not work. Pilots preparing for missions they might not survive. Scientists trying to find any advantage they could. Admiral Price stood in his private quarters looking at an old photograph. His family had been on Earth when the Crithians attacked. His wife, his 2 daughters, his grandchildren. He did not know if they were alive or dead. He hoped they had survived, found shelter, were hiding somewhere safe, but he knew the odds. And that knowledge fueled his determination. The Crithians had taken everything from him. From all of them. And now humanity was going to take something back. Dr. Cruz worked through the night on her virus, testing it against simulated Crithian networks. It was crude, improvised from fragments of alien code they had recovered from wreckage, but it would work. It had to work. Nina Foster sat in the recreation area writing a message on her datapad. It was addressed to no one, a letter to a future that might never come. She wrote about what had happened, about the people she had met, about the fight they were preparing for. If humanity lost, if everyone died, at least there would be a record. Someone, someday, might find it and know that humans had not gone quietly. Chris Rodriguez listened to Crithian communications and learned their rhythms. He could not speak their language, but he could feel the patterns. He knew when they were relaxed, when they were alert, when they were vulnerable. And he marked those times because that information could save lives. The asteroid base hummed with activity as the deadline approached. Ships were armed, crews were trained, plans were finalized. Everyone knew what was coming. Many would not survive. But they also knew that doing nothing guaranteed extinction. On the final night before the operation, Admiral Price addressed the entire fleet. "Tomorrow we go back," he said. His voice carried to every ship, every person. "We go back to the place where we lost everything. Where the Crithians think they have won. But they are wrong. They broke our defenses. They destroyed our cities. They killed our people. But they did not destroy humanity. We are still here. Still fighting. Still refusing to surrender." He paused, looking at the camera that broadcast his image across the fleet. "Tomorrow, we show them what that means. Tomorrow we strike back, and when we do, when we hit them with everything we have, they will finally understand. Humanity is not defeated. This war is not over, and we will never stop fighting until Earth is free." The speech ended, but the words echoed through the fleet. People felt fear, certainly. But they also felt something they had not felt in weeks. They felt hope. The human fleet moved through space like ghosts returning to haunt the living. 73 ships, each one held together with spare parts and determination, heading toward the inner solar system with cold fury burning in their hearts. Admiral Price stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the tactical display. The Crithian occupation force spread across his screens like a disease, hundreds of alien ships orbiting Earth, patrolling the space lanes, confident in their victory. They thought the war was over. They thought humanity was extinct or scattered beyond recovery. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "All ships, maintain communication silence," Price ordered quietly. "Proceed as planned. Dr. Cruz, status on the virus?" At the science station, Helen Cruz's fingers moved across her console. "Ready to deploy, Admiral. As soon as we are in range of their network, I can upload it." "Weapons ready," Colonel Phillips reported. "All strike teams are in position and waiting for the signal." The fleet glided through the asteroid belt on minimum power, using the rocks for cover. Every ship was dark, every engine cold. They were a knife sliding toward an unsuspecting throat. Lisa Hayes sat in the captain's chair of the Resolute, her civilian cargo hauler now bristling with missile pods and railguns. Her crew, people who had loaded freight and transported supplies just weeks ago, now manned weapon stations with grim determination. "Captain, we are approaching the deployment zone," Danny Walsh reported from the navigation station. Lisa activated the ship-wide communication. "All hands, prepare for combat. Check your stations one more time. Make sure everything is secure. And remember what we are fighting for. Remember Earth." Around her, the crew moved with practiced efficiency. They were scared. She could see it in their eyes, hear it in their voices. But they did not hesitate. 30 million kilometers from Earth, Dr. Cruz found her opening. "Admiral, I have accessed their network. Uploading the virus now." For a moment, nothing happened. Then across the Krathian fleet, systems began to fail. Navigation computers froze and rebooted. Weapon targeting systems went offline. Shield generators cycled through random frequencies. The aliens suddenly found themselves blind and vulnerable. "They are disabled," Phillips said with fierce satisfaction. "Launch all strike wings. Go, go, go." The human fleet came alive like a storm. Engines ignited, weapons powered up, and 73 ships accelerated toward Earth at maximum speed. The Krithian command station, a massive orbital platform looming above the blue planet, suddenly had an angry swarm of human vessels heading straight for it. Lieutenant Kyle Stevens piloted his fighter through a chaos of weapons fire, his squadron following close behind. Krithian ships were starting to recover from the virus, their defensive systems coming back online. Laser blasts and missiles filled the space around them. "Strike Team Alpha, form up on me," Kyle commanded over the radio. "We are going for the command station's main reactor cluster. Stay tight and watch your spacing." 20 fighters tightened their formation and dove toward the massive alien structure. Defensive turrets fired at them, but the Krithians were still confused, their targeting not quite synchronized. Human pilots wove between the incoming fire with desperate skill. Marcus Bell sat at the weapons station of a converted mining ship, his fingers dancing across the controls. Targeting their shield generators, he called to Nina, who was managing power distribution. "Hit them during the frequency transition, just like we practiced." The railguns fired, streams of metal projectiles moving at incredible speed. They struck the Krithian destroyer at precisely the right moment, when its shields were vulnerable. The alien ship's protective barrier collapsed and follow-up shots punched through the exposed hull. "Direct hit," Nina shouted. "Their shields are down." Around them, the rest of the human fleet pressed the attack. Small ships darting between larger ones, exploiting every weakness that Colonel Phillips had identified. They could not match the Krithians in raw firepower, but they made up for it with fury and precision. "The virus is wearing off," Dr. Cruz warned from the Defiance. 2 minutes until their systems are back at full capacity." "All ships maximum effort now," Admiral Price commanded. "Target that command station. Everything we have." The Defiance led the charge, its main cannons blazing as it closed the distance to the orbital platform. Around it, the rest of the fleet poured fire into the Krithian command center. Missiles detonated against shields. Railgun rounds hammered armor plating. Human determination smashed against alien superiority in a violent storm of weapons and will. Kyle's squadron reached the command station's hull and released their payload. Specialized explosives designed by Marcus and his team to exploit the Krithian reactor design. "Charges set," Kyle reported. "All wings, break off now." The fighters peeled away from the station as Marcus began his countdown. "Detonation in 10 seconds, 9, 8, 7. The command station's reactor complex exploded in a brilliant flash of blue light. Secondary explosions rippled across the structure as power systems overloaded and ammunition stores detonated. The massive platform broke apart, huge pieces tumbling toward Earth's atmosphere where they would burn up on entry. For a moment, the entire Krithian fleet seemed frozen in shock. Their command center was destroyed. Their coordination was shattered. The humans had hurt them. "Execute Phase 2, Admiral Price ordered. "Strike teams, proceed to your secondary targets." While the main fleet kept the Krithians occupied in Earth orbit, smaller task forces broke away. Lisa Hayes led one group toward Mars, racing at top speed toward the Red Planet. Another team, commanded by Jake Morrison, headed for the Moon. Their mission was simple but dangerous: destroy the Krithian supply depots that fueled the occupation. The Resolute and 5 other ships dropped into Mars orbit, weapons hot and ready. Below them, on the surface, were massive storage facilities filled with fuel and ammunition that the Crithians had stockpiled. Targeting solutions locked, Danny reported. Firing missiles. The missiles streaked down through the thin Martian atmosphere and struck their targets with precision. Fuel depots exploded in massive fireballs. Ammunition bunkers detonated in chain reactions. The Crithian supply network was burning, but the aliens were recovering. Their fleet systems came back online, and the full weight of their superior numbers began to tell. Human ships started taking damage. Warning alarms sounded across multiple vessels. "Sir, we are losing ships," Colonel Phillips reported, his voice tight. "The Lincoln is destroyed. The Resolute has heavy damage and is venting atmosphere. The Beijing is dead in space." Price watched his tactical display as green icons blinked out, replaced by gray. Each one represented a ship, a crew, people who had trusted him to lead them into battle. People who were now dying. "All ships begin withdrawal," he ordered, the words bitter in his mouth. "We have accomplished our mission. Fall back to the rendezvous point." The human fleet disengaged, ships limping away from Earth as the Crithians regrouped for pursuit. Lisa nursed her damaged hauler through space, half her crew dead or injured, her ship held together with emergency patches and prayer. But they had done it. They had struck back. Kyle's fighter squadron covered the retreat, harassing Crithian pursuers and buying time for the damaged vessels to escape. His own craft had taken hits and one engine was failing, but he kept flying. As the human fleet retreated into the outer system, Chris Rodriguez, monitoring communications, suddenly called out, "Admiral, you need to hear this. The Crithians are broadcasting on all frequencies." "Put it through," Price said. The transmission was not in a human language, but the tone was clear: anger, confusion, fear. For the first time, the Crithians sounded uncertain, and then, cutting across their transmissions, came something else. Human broadcasts, messages from the fleet, spreading across every frequency that could reach Earth. The broadcasts showed footage from the battle: human ships destroying the command station, explosions at Crithian supply depots, the occupation fleet in chaos, and at the end, a simple message repeated in every human language: humanity is not defeated. We are still fighting. To everyone still alive on Earth, in the colonies, anywhere in the solar system. Hold on, we are coming back. This is just the beginning. Admiral Price watched the broadcast spread across the communication networks and allowed himself a small, grim smile. The battle had cost them 15 ships and hundreds of lives. They had not won. The Crithians still controlled Earth. The occupation continued, but they had proven something important. They had shown that humanity could fight back. That the Crithians were not invincible. That this war was far from over. "Set course for the Kuiper Belt," Price ordered. "We need to regroup, repair, and prepare for the next operation." As the battered fleet limped toward the outer reaches of the solar system, the survivors processed what had happened. They had gone back to Earth, they had struck the enemy, and they had survived. It was not victory, but it was not defeat either. It was something else. It was hope. 3 months after Operation Thunderstrike, the Crithian Empire faced a problem they had never encountered before. The humans refused to stay defeated. Ambassador Vexthor stood aboard his flagship, staring at casualty reports with growing frustration. His fleet had conquered Earth easily. The humans had seemed weak, their technology primitive. Victory should have been simple and complete. Instead, his forces were bleeding. "How many ships did we lose this week?" Vexthor demanded, his alien voice harsh through the translation device. 17, Excellence," his tactical officer reported. "The humans attack from multiple directions, hit our supply convoys, and disappear before we can respond. They know our patrol routes. They exploit our weaknesses." Vexthor's appendages clicked in anger. When the invasion began, the humans had been easy prey. Now, 3 months later, they were a constant threat. Small, fast, dangerous. Meanwhile, at humanity's hidden base in the Kuiper Belt, Admiral Price reviewed intelligence with careful optimism. The hit-and-run tactics were working. The Crithians were confused, spread thin, forced to defend assets across the entire solar system. "Admiral, good news," Colonel Phillips announced, entering the command center. "Another group of survivors reached us from the inner system. 500 people, including 2 intact military escort ships with full weapon loads. Every new arrival was precious. The human population had grown from 47,000 to nearly 70,000 as scattered refugees found their way to the fleet. It was nothing compared to what they had lost, but it was a start. Dr. Cruz had been working without rest. "Admiral, I have cracked their faster-than-light communication system. I can now track every Crithian ship in the solar system in real time. 327 vessels spread across all the major locations. That gives us a significant advantage," Price said, studying the tactical map she projected. "We know where they are before they know where we are." Lisa Hayes had proven herself as a natural leader. After the battle at Earth, Price had put her in charge of coordinating the Resistance fleet. Her talent for logistics and creative problem-solving made her perfect for organizing the scattered strike teams that were harassing the Crithians. "We hit their mining operation on Titan tomorrow," Lisa briefed her squadron commanders, pointing to a holographic display of Saturn's largest moon. "Intelligence shows they are extracting fuel compounds there. We destroy the refineries. We cut their local fuel supply. They have to bring in replacements from outside the system." "What about defenses?" someone asked. 10 patrol ships, standard formation. We hit them fast with Kyle's fighter wings, disable their sensors. Then the main force moves in to destroy the facilities. Major Kyle Stevens, promoted after his actions during Operation Thunderstrike, had become a legend among the survivors. His pilots called themselves the Ghosts, appearing from nowhere to savage Crithian positions before vanishing into the void. But it was Marcus Bell's latest invention that was about to change everything. "I call it the Equalizer," Marcus explained to Admiral Price, showing him a large device mounted on a modified cargo platform. "The Crithians have better shields because they can generate more power. But what if we do not try to match their power? What if we use their power against them?" Price examined the device carefully. "Explain how it works." "It is a resonance weapon. When fired at a Crithian shield, it creates a harmonic frequency. The shield tries to compensate, but the compensation requires more power, which creates more resonance. Within seconds, their generators overload from their own energy output. The bigger their ship, the faster it fails." "Have you tested this?" Price asked. Marcus grinned. "We captured a small Crithian corvette 2 weeks ago. The Equalizer disabled its shields in 14 seconds. Price looked at the weapon, then at Marcus. "How many can you build?" "If I have every fabrication facility in the fleet and enough raw materials, I can outfit 20 ships in 2 weeks." "You have 1 week," Price said firmly, "because I am done playing defense. It is time we took something back." 7 days later, the human fleet emerged from the Kuiper Belt transformed. 20 ships carried the Equalizer weapons. The rest had been upgraded with improved sensors, better coordination systems, and the determination of people who had been pushed to their limit and were now pushing back. They did not attack the edges this time. They went straight for Mars. The Crithian garrison orbiting the red planet had grown comfortable. The humans were supposed to be broken, scattered, running. The alarm came too late. Human ships dropped out of high-speed approach, weapons hot, targeting solutions locked. The Equalizers fired and Crithian shields collapsed across the enemy formation. Ships that had been nearly invulnerable suddenly found themselves exposed. Lisa Hayes commanded the assault from the Resolute, now fully repaired and heavily armed. "All ships target their shield generators first, then their weapons. Hit them hard. Hit them fast." The battle became chaos. Human vessels darted between larger Crithian warships, exploiting every advantage. What should have been a hopeless fight became an even match. Alien ships exploded. Human ships took damage but kept fighting. Ambassador Vexthor received the report with disbelief. "They destroyed the Mars garrison? Completely?" "Yes, Excellence. 67 ships lost. The humans have occupied our orbital platforms and are raiding our surface installations." For the first time since the invasion began, Vexthor felt something the Crithian Empire rarely experienced: fear. On Mars, Admiral Price stood in the captured command center looking down at the red planet. The Crithian occupation had damaged the human colonies, but people still lived there. Survivors hiding in underground shelters waiting for rescue. "Send a message to the Crithian High Command," Price ordered. "Tell them this. You came to our home. You killed our people. You thought we would break. But you were wrong. Humanity does not break. We adapt, we learn, and then we strike back. This war is not over. It is only beginning." As the message broadcast on every Crithian frequency, Lisa activated the next phase of the plan. Across the solar system, in hidden bases and concealed outposts, resistance cells came alive. On Earth's surface, in the ruins of great cities, survivors who had been hiding for months emerged with weapons that Marcus had smuggled to them. The Crythian occupation forces suddenly found themselves under attack from within. Sabotage, ambushes, coordinated strikes that overwhelmed isolated garrisons. Nina Foster, leading a resistance cell in the ruins of what had been Denver, planted explosives on a Crythian fuel depot. "For Earth," she whispered, triggering the charges. The depot exploded in a fireball visible for miles. Kyle Stevens, watching from orbit, smiled grimly. "That is the signal. All teams commence Operation Deliverance." Human ships descended through Earth's atmosphere for the first time since the invasion. Not to stay, not yet, but to deliver supplies to the resistance, to evacuate civilians, to show the Crethians that humanity was coming home. Dr. Cruz made another breakthrough. "Admiral, I have been analyzing their communications. The Crythians are calling for reinforcements from their empire. They can bring thousands of ships. How long do we have?" Price asked. 6 to 8 months. But Admiral, I found something else. The Crythians are not the only spacefaring race in the galaxy. There are others. Some of them have been conquered just like us. Price looked at his assembled officers. Hayes, Phillips, Cruz, Stevens, Bell, Foster, and dozens more. The best of humanity, forged in fire, made stronger by adversity. "Then we have work to do," he said. "We need to secure this system, rebuild our strength, and prepare. When those Crythian reinforcements arrive, we will be ready. And after we drive them out, we will find those other conquered races." "And do what, sir?" Colonel Phillips asked. Price smiled, and it was not a kind expression. "We will teach them what we learned. That no matter how powerful the enemy, resistance is never futile. That once humans decide to fight, nothing can stop us. We will teach the galaxy what it means to strike back like thunder." Across the solar system, on 1,000 different frequencies, the message was clear. Humanity was not defeated. The war was not over. The Crythians had made the mistake of leaving survivors, and those survivors were fighting back with everything they had. On Earth, in the ruins of old cities, people heard the message and felt hope for the first time in months. In the colonies on Mars and the moons of Jupiter, survivors came out of hiding. Throughout the asteroid belt and beyond, every human still alive knew the truth. They were not alone. They were not abandoned. Humanity was still fighting. Ambassador Vexthor looked at his casualty reports and resource assessments and realized something terrible. The humans were winning. Slowly, steadily, they were taking back their solar system. His empire had made a catastrophic error. They had assumed humans would surrender after the initial attack. They had been wrong. Admiral Price stood on the observation deck of the Defiance, looking at Earth in the distance. The blue planet still had Crythian ships around it, but fewer now. Every day humanity took back a little more. Every week they grew stronger. The Crythians had thought humanity was defeated. They thought the war was over after 3 weeks. They thought wrong. Because humanity had learned something important through all the pain and loss. They learned that it did not matter how many times you got